Okay, let's get going. Hey everyone, thanks for tuning in. Let's see. Today's theme or idea has to do with what I'm calling blind spots. So the question here, from a neurologic standpoint, is we have a subjective experience. We're looking at something, we're experiencing things, and it all feels very, very real and very accurate to us. But I think we, for the most part, really underestimate the role that the brain is playing in filling in these blind spots, or the parts that we're actually unable to experience. And I'll give you a concrete example of this. So, um, you're driving down the road, you see the grass, you see the sign. This all feels like it's very clear and very precise. When in reality, what our eyeballs are actually able to perceive is this. Right. So so the comparison between what we experience here versus what's actually happening neurologically is very, very different. Now, the brain, the nervous system compensates for this blind spot by having the eyes constantly move about. So they're never just still, but they're flitting about and filling in as much information as they can. And then the brain also fills in a lot of what we perceive based on past experiences. And so there's a very real, literal blind spot here, because biologically speaking, in the very back of our eyeballs, where the optic nerve goes back to the brain, there are no receptors to pick up any kind of sight, and hence this blind spot, this sort of fuzzy stuff on the periphery, and then in the very, very middle, there's a blind spot. So the brain, like, we don't experience it that way because the brain is just filling things in. And so it's both a literal example, but also a really good metaphorical example of, I think, as we go through life and we have certain experiences, most of the time it feels really, really precise and clear to us as to what we're experiencing. And so today's session is an invitation to just acknowledge and spend a little bit of time noticing where the blind spots are in our life, and what in fact is the narrative that the brain, our subjective brain, has a tendency to fill in. And of course, that has everything to do with past experiences and things like that. So let's see if this goes. So go ahead, close your eyes. Spend a couple minutes just arriving, noticing, doing just a quick journey through our five senses. So starting off with, you close the eyes, but we still see, right? There's shapes, there's colors, there's movement. We have a sense of smell and taste. Those two are very intricately connected. So just noticing, what does your mouth taste like right now? What are the ears picking up in terms of sounds? And our skin, if there's any breeze, temperature. So there's literally, in any given moment, there is lots and lots of inbound information from our five senses. But of course, we don't experience it. We don't experience each of these senses sort of in isolation. It all gets converted into a package that we then call experience. See if you can just feel into that awareness of all of this inbound information, and how that then manifests as, this is what it's like to be me right now. And then setting the intention to simply open up to um, the possibility that much of what we're experiencing in any given moment is not so much the result of what we're actually experiencing from a neurologic standpoint, but how much of this is the brain filling in familiar stories and familiar sense of what it's like to be. And if this feels too abstract right now, I invite you to think about a recent situation that you're going through where things maybe felt a little bit uncomfortable, a little bit unnerving, a little bit irritated by someone, and then see if you can tease apart what was actually happening in that moment. So, where were you? What was the person saying? What were they wearing? Was it sunny? Was it cloudy? It's all the sensory experience of that moment. And then compare that to the story or the subjective experience that you were having. Like, notice how quickly the brain fills in, oh, this is why they were doing this, and this is typical, this is really unusual. Just notice how much of that color is actually being added in, not necessarily because that's what's happening in the moment, but it's based on what we've experienced in the past. And so we're bringing our past experiences into the present moment and creating a coherent narrative that says, ah, there it is. This is what's happening right now. I'm not suggesting that there's anything wrong with that. It just is sort of it is our biology. It just is the way the brain works and the way the senses work. It's just helpful, I think, to notice the difference between just the facts of what's happening in any given situation and the stories of the past that we bring into the situation in order to explain and make sense of what's happening. They're two very distinct experiences. And for extra credit, see if you can notice any familiarity in terms of the explanatory style that your brain in particular brings to that situation. Past experiences that have been reinforced over time. Say childhood experiences loom really large here. And once we're able to become aware of the difference between what's just factually happening in the moment and what our brain and mind bring to the table to layer on top of it, the cool thing is we're then given a little bit of a choice. And so we know that there is potentially a difference between the two. I think we can make a more informed decision about what to do with the information or the experience. simply acknowledging the possibility that there's a blind spot there where we don't see things exactly the way we think they are, I think opens us up to empathy, compassion, creativity, agency. I think we get to reinsert ourselves into the driver's seat and say, yeah, I'm pretty sure this is not the whole story. So knowing that, now what? What do I do with this? And then also realizing that every human being that we interact with is subject to the same rules. Everyone out there is also sort of struggling with, the certitude of their subjective experience and this unconscious part, which has to do with how the mind fills in so much of the narrative around that experience. And so everyone's subject to these same blind spots, and maybe we can just cut them a little more slack, a little more leeway and forgiveness. And take a deep breath in through the nose, out through the mouth, relaxing the belly, the hands, the chest. Hold for 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. In through the nose, up through the mouth. Again, relaxing the belly and the hands, shoulders. Hold for 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Open your eyes. Come on back. And yeah, hope that one landed. So maybe the intention is to go through the rest of the day with just a little more uh, holding, just sort of relaxing around the confidence or the certainty that what we're experiencing is actually what's happening, and it just opens us up to, I think, more creativity and compassion. So hope that worked. See you tomorrow, everyone. Take care. Thank you.